Hi there! Are we ready for Christmas cards? Because I am. So today we're gonna be making 4 Christmas cards, and these are some of the supplies I'm gonna be using. This is kind of like a toothbrush, very hard. I'm gonna use it for splattering with the white gouache. I have some table salt in here and the new stamps. I'm very excited about these and we're gonna try them. They have an acrylic block and they're very easy to use. We have this water sprinkler and 2 jars of water and washi tape. So I'm gonna be starting with this cold press paper. It has a nice texture and it absorbs the water better. It's you can use hot pressed, cold press does not matter, just your result is gonna look a little bit different. I chose the cold press this time, and I'm cut it all 4.5 by 6 inches, and I'm using a washi tape to make this border around it and also to secure it to the table. I'm gonna start with a very light sketch. It's basically a circle with cone, and I'm gonna be watering the paper around the snowman. Now I think my brush was already dirty, that's why my water looks a little bit orange. Your water should be clear, but since I'm making the background so dark, it's not gonna be a big issue right now. I'm mixing here some ultramarine blue with black, ivory black, and some purple that I have in my palette. It really doesn't matter what kind of watercolors you have. The better quality, the more smooth your gradient background's gonna look, but it's just everything is good. Now I'm trying to make the top part very dark, and so I'm using 2 or even 3 layers of gradient and going carefully around the little head of the snowman. Now you can use either tape for this part or masking fluid. I prefer to work wet on wet on this part. You can do dry on wet depending on how soft do you want your shadows to look. I like them very soft. As you can tell, I'm not a fan of hard edges. We have now just the background very crisp edges, but so I'm doing some cheeks, some red cheeks for these for the snowman, which is he's very cold because he's outside and he has no clothes on, so he's blushing. Okay, it's cold. And for that I used a combination between pink and I had the red in my palette, so just use whatever you feel like it's gonna work best. It does not matter. And then for the nose, I worked wet on wet because I like how it drips in the snow, that yellowish. I used yellow, and now I'm adding more and more orange to it. As you can see, I'm building up layers, and here I'm working wet on dry for the nose, for the carrot nose. Now I need to build more shadows on the bottom, and I kind of did that. You can build more or less. My light is coming from the left, and then I have that lighter part on the carrot nose, kind of like on the left a little, and so is the highlight on the snow. Now building the little mouth that is somewhat wet on wet, and now I'm building up layers that are wet on dry just to emphasize it more, and I'm using the dryer for every step. Now if you have kids and you're making these cards with your kids, you can skip the dryer and just work wet on wet, or just have some conversation, and in the meantime it will get dry. Now I loaded this hard brush with gouache, and I'm splattering. These are the snowflakes, and you can add more or less water to have your snowflakes further or closer from you, however you prefer. Now I have this stamp that I am going to load with, I'm gonna put on this acrylic block, and you put it there and it kind of gets stuck, which is good. And then I'm spreading gouache on top of the surface. Now I'm trying to place the stamp level and centered on the piece of paper that I have, and pay attention to spread it evenly on your stamp. If your kids are gonna be doing this, just tell them not to apply too much pressure, because if you do, then your shape is not gonna be very well defined. Now at this stage you can play around and add more snowflakes. Just take I like the little ones. I feel like they look a little bit like stars, and they work very well with the darker sky. And if you need more contrast on your carrot, add a darker layer combining that orange that you had prepared with a red. Here is Mr. Snowman looking in the sky, trying to find Santa. This one, the first one's ready, and now I'm gonna clean up this whole mess I made here with some wet towel. And okay, let's move on to the second one. I have a little piece of paper there because my intent is to use the color there and just test the swatches. I might do it later, but just in case, I always have to have that paper prepared next to the painting. Now for this card, we're gonna make this pine tree, and I'm tracing this shape of the tree and adding a star on the top. I'm gonna be working on the inside, just painting the inside of these individual shapes, and for that I'm using masking fluid, but I'm gonna tell you that you don't necessarily need it. You're gonna see that it works better if you don't, actually. So you can use here washi tape and just cut it in those shapes, or just work freehand, because these shapes are pretty easy, so you don't necessarily need a guide. If you have kids, then this might definitely be easier for them, this method of, so they don't have to focus on the shapes too much. They just put the color in. And as you can see, if you add more water in some areas or trying to correct later, you'll get those cauliflower effects, and I'm gonna show you how I correct them. I just load my brush with water, and I'm gently scraping the surface, and that will blend it pretty well. And then I'm adding more one more layer darker watercolor, because every layer is transparent, so we're trying to mask those differences of color. Now I'm gonna be drying the paper very well before I use my stamp, because it's ink and it will spread like crazy the moment it touches water. So now I have the stamp, which is this darker purple color, so I did that. I added some shadows on the little blobs I have from the tree, just to make it look seamless and just make it look like it's matching. After the splattering is done, I added a little bit of shadow on the bottom of the tree, and it's done. Now moving on to the third card here, we're gonna be making this another snowman that is putting the tip star on a tree in the forest. And here I want a lot of contrast, because we're gonna be using white gouache exclusively to show the snow. So for this gradient, I'm just working my way up from the top to the bottom with more intensity on the top, and I'm sprinkling some salt. After I dry it out, we can splatter and make our snowing scene with same the white gouache with some water and then a brush. The stiffer the brush, the better your splash are gonna be. It's gonna go like a spring. It works like a spring. So now I'm loading my finger with the white gouache and I'm stamping so the kids are gonna love this part. It's making the fingerprints, so you can even have them stamp it multiple times if the thumb is too small. I'm just trying to make just the bottom blob bigger, and then the one from the middle is going to be like an intermediate size, and then the head is going to be smaller. Now for the tree, I want to bend it a little towards the snowman, so it's like easier for Mr. Snowman to put the top on it. I'm using here white gouache, and I'm adding some water and just losing the bottom edge, kind of like dissipating it. Now I'm using the same combination of that blue and black ivory with purple for the darker areas, which are going to be the nose, the eyes, and the branches for Mr. Snowman's arms. Adding the carrot, which is a combination between yellow Naples and some orange that I have in my palette. And then you can add a hat if you'd like, or just don't. I prefer to do that. And then for the final touch, I like to splash a little bit of that yellow and also the orange in the sky to make it all go well together. Now stamping the Merry Christmas, and then it's done. The fourth card is going to be another Mr. Snowman, and this one's gonna be with no sketch, no tracing, because this one is a lot easier. So here I'm using the same purple, but I'm adding more cerulean blue. Now whether you see this intense blue, this is cerulean blue, so you can add more or less. And then I prefer to have some contrast between the body of the Mr. Snowman and the scarf and the head. So I'm adding some more color for darker value. The more water you have, the lighter it's going to be. So now don't focus too much on the details, just move your brush and kind of make this big scarf and like a hat. And then use a sharper brush and some brown tones with some yellows, and then make some branches in the back, which is gonna bind together the yellow of the snowman's nose with the background. And then we're gonna use the same yellow for the nose, and then a very dark combination of that purple for the eyes and the mouth. Here, just pay attention not to touch the nose, because once you do, that water is going to spread, the pigment's going to go into the nose. So for the scarf, I don't mind that too much. I kind of like to have some softer blending of the colors. I'm not going to focus too much on drying everything, because that way just looks more natural. And then once everything is dry, I'm gonna add another darker layer to make it pop a little and have some contrast. So for that, I'm using the same purple combination, and then for the body I use more cerulean blue. Now you want to have that lighter area in the middle somewhere, and the stamp will be the final touch, and this one was ready very quickly. Now I hope you guys enjoyed these cards, and I try to make them more simple because I had this request from dear subscriber Carol. Thank you so much for watching my videos, and she was asking for some more simple tutorials to watch, and I hope these were easier to follow. If you like them and if you want more videos, comment below and tell me what you want your subject to be. Thank you and happy painting!